Mr. Farrell and council members, my name is Alan Heroyan. I'm from the Nevins community. A lot of the Nevins community is here right now. They're to the back of the room. I just wanted...
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could I have your exact address, please?
Yes, I live at 29 Morrison Drive.
Thank you, sir.
And in speaking for them, I just want to express our concerns for the building and maintenance of a fence regarding the 35 Gilcrest Road project by Massetti Corporation. All of us who bought into that area were led to believe this would be conservation land forever and a day. And then it was kind of a shock for us to find out that this wasn't the case. It was this conservation easement has been released. And so we do want to keep some semblance of conservation land between our homes and this development. And reason I'm here is I just want to make sure there indeed would be a fence constructed and maintained by the builder, and even for the sound and the noise, for the sound and the light issues, bright headlights and things like that, that we could request that some plantings be put in, evergreens, to kind of block that. So, like I said, we do want to try and preserve some semblance of conservation land behind us, and that was the reason we all bought in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ray Burson, 3 Gary Drive. There's a lot of items on the agenda here, so I don't want to take any more time than necessary. But there is something on here. Is it okay to speak on what's on the agenda, Mr.?
Of course.
Okay. There is the Gilcrest Road property, which I have a question, and I'm not expecting you to answer it, but I'm a little confused as to who the owner of the property is. It was my belief that it was the Massetti Development Corporation, Gilcrest Realty Holdings, but there's a contract here that says that Reggie Rosario and Boston North own the property. That's a little confusing. I mean, this is from the assessor's office. I'd like to have a clarification on that. And also, apparently, there's a contract here that says it's been signed by the town manager. I brought up before that this should be a topic of discussion with the citizens of Londonderry. I don't believe that's taken place. It certainly hasn't been with me. And in regards to the folks from the Nevins, certainly they should have something to say. Also, on this property, there is a monitoring well. It's called FW26D. I think we need to know what we're dealing with, because we're talking about the Tinkham Superfund site, whether it's the Nevins or whether it's this property or whatever, and there are, I think, over 30 monitoring wells on this property that we really need to know what we're dealing with. Also, I don't believe there is sewerage going down South Gilcrest if they're going to develop this property, which is another thing that the town is going to have to look at as to running sewerage down there. I believe there is water going down there, municipal water, but not sewerage. We got a lot to deal with in this town, and before some of these things are moved forward, we need to have discussion with the citizenry and the general public. I think that would be appropriate. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
You're welcome. Folks, just to clear up some things with regards to Gilcrest. First of all, what's in front of us today is what was presented to the voters and approved by the voters. With regards to fence plantings, all these are planning board items. There'll be an opportunity, if this project goes forward, for you to go to the planning board, work with the planning board. They'll have to work within our regulations. With regards to the ownership or anything along those lines, I do know who Mr. Ronzella is. Boston North was something from around 30 years ago. The EPA has been monitoring that entire area for almost 30 years. So these are all things that are well known to the community and to the town. But this is a piece of property that was approved by the voters to move forward.
Can you identify yourself? You haven't gone up to the mic. I don't know who you are.
What are you talking about? Who's talking? It's Farrell who's talking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know who you are.
Hi.
Hello.
So just for clarification purposes, this is something that has already been approved by the voters, just so that we're aware. Happy to continue to hear from everyone with regards to this site, but I wanted to make sure you knew all that information first. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Sir, if you would like to come up, and talk, sir, you're more than welcome to come on up. You identify yourself with your name and address, and we're happy to listen to you. Yes.
Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. I have been asking, since this was approved by the voters for, I think, 33 votes, I have been coming and asking that the fence blocking be part of the negotiations with Gilcrest LLC prior to it being accepted. So I understand that it is a planning board issue, but if it's accepted without it, sometimes, anyway. So I've done some research because I've really been concerned, because I know when I bought my property in 2008, and some people before me bought their properties, they were told at that time by, I'll call him Johnny K., who represented the Massetti Corporation and Gilcrest LLC, that our conservation land went all the way back. And in looking at the original deed from 2003, with the map on book 4150, page 127, the original agreement in 2003, that land, lot 118, was part of the Nevins. It was included in the Nevins. And at that time, the agreement all said that nothing could be done to, and I don't have the legal terms, but nothing could be done to the site to change that without the agreement of all the landowners. Now, I do know that Massetti Corporation was the total landowner at that time. But when that map was changed, there were landowners there. There were people on Haley Drive that were living there, that had bought properties. And the book and page specifically say each individual unit owner. So I know that they were not asked if they mind if lot 118 was taken out. And I do not believe, and I ask that more research is done on this, when was lot 118 taken out of the Nevins property? Who approved it being taken out of the Nevins property? So I just ask, before all of this is completed, that some of these questions can be clarified. Now, it's easy. Mr. Massetti came to a group of us that lived there at one time and told us that we needed to buy the 3 lots in the front of us. And he told us we needed to buy them and that they were conservation and commercial. And if we didn't, then, they could put commercial property in there. Well, after doing some research at the town, I found that the Nevins already owned those properties. So I'm asking that some more research be done on if it was done the way of the original document in 2003, if the lot 118 was legally transferred out of the Nevins prior to making any agreement with the Gilcrest LLC. Thank you.
Alrighty, approval of 35 Gilcrest Road, release of conservation easement transaction. My understanding, as stated earlier, is that you are looking for a consensus from the council to take this to the Conservation Commission?
That's right, Mr. Chairman. I want to elaborate a little bit.
Feel free.
Because, there's been, I think, some confusion about this transaction, and it is a confusing transaction. But I want to just, go through as quickly as I can how we got here and exactly what I'm asking the town council for tonight. So in 2003, the town entered into an agreement for restrictive covenant and open space conservation easements with Gilcrest Realty Holdings LLC and Gilcrest Realty Holdings 2 LLC. And the agreement was not with Mr. Ronzello. There is a reference to Mr. Ronzello in the purchase and sales agreement simply to identify the source deed as a matter of title, essentially where Gilcrest's title came from. But that party is not a party to this transaction.
Is it Mr. Elmer Pease?
I believe he's in the chain of title as well.
I was the owner. He was the owner in 2003, I believe.
Correct. I recall seeing that name.
Ron, there's 2 pages there on each one.
I'm going to be using 2 different terms to go over this, but I want to be clear because I can respond to some of the concerns that were raised in public comment. The conservation restriction presently is encumbering this parcel that I have highlighted here. This is referred to as the orchard lot in the applicable easement and restriction document. This lot here is 2 things. It's the Nevins, which ultimately was developed, and it's this area of buffer in here, which it is correct, is owned and restricted by the Nevins, and will continue to be restricted as open space going forward. So I want to be 100% clear that there is no proposal to develop, nor can this area be developed. It is to remain as open space.
And that's part of the special election we did in 2003 when we did this, right?
That's exactly right.
And there's approximately 500 to 800 feet of conservation easement there between that and that parcel, right?
650.
650?
So you're looking at 700 feet.
So it's 700 feet from the nearest home in the Nevins to that property line.
Yeah, let me redraw it here from this.
Because I keep hearing about a fence. We
Yeah.
got a fence 700 feet away?
Yeah. I will address that in just a minute, Mr. Chairman, but it's about 638, 640 feet. And it should be noted that we
And
do.
it looks like some of them are almost 800 or 900 feet.
Easily. And this,
I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. Is the fence going to go along the property line?
it will. It will go on the property line.
So they're going to put up a fence that this gentleman brought up earlier that he wants maintained 600 to 900 feet away.
That's exactly right.
Okay, just so I'm clear and I understand.
Representative Perez was the one who brought that up in the first instance, and she had expressed a concern about, people, kids in the woods there, and she asked and obtained a petition from a number of people who live in the Nevins that we integrate a requirement for a fence into the purchase and sales agreement. That's exactly what we did.
So again, just to be clear, 2 to 3 football fields away.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, something that we came to us as feedback from the community, a request from the community, and we implemented it. Another item that came to us as a request and feedback from the community that we implemented was a requirement, a prohibition on garden-style apartments. I have a request here from the Board of Directors on May 9th, 2022, making that specific request that, that condition should be integrated into the purchase and sales agreement. We did exactly that, Mr. Chairman. We implemented the request that came to us from a member of the community, from a number of members of the community, for their protection. From 2003 forward, what happened is this, and I'll give you the background on how the 2003 agreement came to be. Gilcrest, and so I'm referring here to Massetti, as was pointed out, initially proposed a 361 unit development spread across both this lot and this lot. So 361 units were originally proposed. After negotiations with Gilcrest, the town called a special meeting of the legislative body and voted to raise and appropriate $2.9 million to acquire certain development rights from Gilcrest in exchange for Gilcrest discontinuing that 361 unit apartment complex development and to construct instead 125 age-restricted units on the project lot only, leaving a significant portion of the project lot, but also the orchard lot, restricted. That article passed, and the town entered into the agreement. Under the agreement, Gilcrest agreed to impose a restrictive covenant and open space conservation easement on the orchard lot and on portions of the project lot, and that's this protected area here. These restrictions were defined as open space and conservation easement restrictions. It should be noted that there is no public access to the orchard lot. It is overgrown. It's significantly overgrown, and there is, some level of contamination that's associated with the historical application of pesticides to fruit trees. Same kind of contamination that it would likely exist in any other orchard in town.
If memory serves me, that orchard hasn't been served in 40 to 45 years.
I think that's exactly right. One concern that was this is important, and I'll come back to this in a moment. But this is not your average charitable easement or conservation restriction, because what it says is and I'm talking about the restriction that is currently encumbering the parcel that we're talking about, the parcel to be developed, has this provision that says, quote, "The town, by appropriate town vote, may amend or revoke the conservation easement in part or in the entirety, which amendment or revocation shall be effective upon recording in the Rockingham County Registry of Deeds." So it has a built-in amendment termination provision, anticipating that circumstances might change in the future. That brought us to the 2022 town meeting, where the town proposed 2 warrant articles that appeared on that ballot. The first sought authority to release the conservation easement for no less than $2.65 million to be paid to the town. And then the second appropriated from that amount, $750,000, to be used within a reasonable period of time by the Conservation Commission to acquire a conservation parcel of equal or greater conservation value. So we're doing at least no net conservation harm and likely net conservation good. The remaining $1.9 million would be available for the town's general purposes. And as we don't have a current use for that $1.9 million, it will lapse to the UFB at the end of the year and then be available either to directly lower the tax rate, as the council has the opportunity to do in the fall, or to support the taxpayers in other ways, such as, for example, by using UFB to obviate the need to ask taxpayers for a tax appropriation. From a conservation standpoint, if memory serves, the Conservation Commission previously weighed in on this. I think at the time that we started these negotiations, perhaps in advance of the ballot vote, and was either unanimous or entirely, or mostly unanimous in considering this. The Conservation Commission felt that this parcel has some value as a wildlife habitat, but it's really too small and isolated from other natural areas to host a robust natural community, and it really is an eyesore. We get complaints about it. The Conservation Commission gets complaints about it. And so there's an opportunity, I think, to do some good here. So that those two warrant articles passed. They passed narrowly, but they passed. And as far as, there was a complaint that was made in public comment that there's been inadequate discussion with the community about this. Respectfully, I don't think that that's correct. I can tell you that there were 2 public hearings on the budget the year that this passed. I can tell you that these warrant articles were made available to the public, and there was vigorous and healthy public debate, at least at the one of the public hearings on the budget. I believe there was discussion about this at the deliberative session. There was an article, a letter to the editor that the chairwoman of the Conservation Commission and I sent to the Londonderry Times. There was a healthy back and forth on Facebook as well. And I talked about this when I briefed the public on the warrant articles by video that year. And as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, there's still additional opportunity for public interaction and deliberation on this matter. What I am here for tonight is the following. The town has negotiated a purchase and sales agreement that implements the ballot vote that was taken more than a year ago now. And it reserves to the town council and to the Conservation Commission the right to approve or not approve the terms of the transaction as presented in the purchase and sales agreement that I included in your packet. As this is a conservation restriction, really the Conservation Commission is charged with the management and control of conservation property. And this will be presented to the Conservation Commission, I would expect at their next meeting, but if not, then sometime soon, to finalize the town's approval of releasing this easement in accordance with the ballot vote that was taken. This project will have to go through the normal, as you pointed out, planning and zoning process. There are, concerns were raised about additional screenings here and maintenance of the fence. I suggest, as you did, that those are matters best handled by the planning board as part of their own process. There was a concern about the groundwater here. This is, I believe, in the groundwater management zone attached to the Tinkham Superfund site. And if it's not, it's close. But there is a restriction on the use of groundwater that's by the developer. No wells for human consumption may permissibly be drilled on this site. As far as what people were told at the time, these are complex instruments, and it's certainly possible that there were misunderstandings back in 2002 when these things were being discussed. But what I can tell you, what I have is the conservation instrument, which is a matter of public record. It's recorded at the Registry of Deeds, and it very clearly permits exactly what we're doing here. I would also point out to you, Mr. Chairman, that by letter dated March 24th, 2022, I asked the Attorney General's office to confirm that they did not believe there was a legal impediment to releasing this conservation restriction, at least from a charitable trust standpoint. Charitable trusts is just how the state asserts jurisdiction over matters such as this. By letter dated March 31st, they indicated that they did not see a legal impediment and they were not asserting jurisdiction. So this has all been gone over at some significant length, leading us to this evening's town council meeting. Understand the council does have the right to approve or not approve the terms that I'm presenting. And if the council has concerns about any of those terms, I'm happy to answer any of those questions. But what I am looking for is a consensus of the council that the terms of the agreement, which are in your packet, are acceptable, that the transaction can proceed, and that the council is not going to be looking to invoke that contingency tonight. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, as far as, that public discussion, I announced at the last town council meeting 3 weeks ago that we had come to terms with Gilcrest. Members, at least one member of the public has reached out and asked to inspect the materials. In fact, I believe that member of the public showed up without an appointment and was able to do so, as was that member of the public's right. All of that is to say that we set that person up in a conference room. They went through the materials based on my announcement and the inclusion of this contract in the packet tonight. And I'm happy to answer any of the questions the council might have.
Any questions? We're not taking questions from the public right now. I'm speaking to the council. Any questions?
Quick question for Mike.
Yeah.
So we give our consensus tonight, but then it still goes to the conservation.
That's correct. The
Okay.
council should view this as the last opportunity for the town council to invoke this contingency.
Okay.
But really, to my earlier point, this is not the sale of municipal property. What we're talking about is the release of conservation property. And under RSA 36A, conservation property is managed and controlled by the Conservation Commission. So I would view them as having a primary role in this transaction.
Yeah,
So
they
that-
cannot execute a contract. They cannot make the final decision.
That's correct.
So if they don't like the terms, they can.
Yes, there's a contingency for the Conservation Commission to say no as well.
So, Ron, in other words, they can recommend things back to us, but we have to execute here.
Perfect.
We can either accept or
I
not.
just want them to be able to look at
Yeah,
it.
we can either accept or not accept what they have to say. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, hold on. This is not a public hearing, okay? This is not open to public comment. You have sat here for 2.5 hours, so out of respect for you sitting here, I'll entertain brief comments. So come on up. Hold on, we'll let the... Brief, Dan.
My name is Kristen Heroyan, 29 Morrison Drive, and I am one of the abutters. My question was, you spoke of contamination on the property, the Gilcrest property. If there's mitigation done, will that mitigation affect us over on Morrison, like contamination in the air spreading to us or anything like that?
All right, so you need to look at us, but I'm not an EPA expert. What I've witnessed on other sites that have this pesticide issue is a number of inches or feet. I'm not really sure. It may be somewhere between inches and feet of the topsoil has to be taken off. That has to be taken off site. That has to be remediated someplace else. So there is that would have to happen. They would have to clear that site and do those things, much like they did for your site where you live, and much like they did at Home Depot.
Will it become airborne and spread to us is my concern.
I don't understand or have an expertise in how they go about doing that or what the process is. So that's something that we would have to ask someone else who knows that much better than we do.
And we don't know if they're going to do mitigation or not.
What I can tell you is that in the limited discussions that have occurred, they have indicated that they understand there are state requirements regulating this. They intend to comply with those state requirements. I imagine this is something that the planning board will want assurances about, and I think that would be an appropriate place to understand that mitigation process a little bit better and to make sure that it's enforced to the extent that we can enforce it through the planning board as part of the site plan approval process.
What I can
Okay.
tell you is the planning department and the planning board do not take these things lightly.
Yeah. Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Quick question, Mike. Did you say in 2003 the town paid 2.9 million?
Yeah, yes, I'm
There-
glad
there-
you asked that question.
There was a special election.
Yeah,
and,
I understand
yeah.
that. Yeah, and we're.
I think I know what the next question is going to be.
And we're selling this for 2.6.
So the portion of the consideration
Yep.
that attaches to the restriction on the orchard lot is $1.23 million.
Yeah.
So that's what's being released here.
Okay. So,
So they're paying 2.6 million for what we paid 1.23 million for.
okay, so bear with me here. Okay, the Gilcrest Road conservation easement, I heard at the meeting, it would be a few houses. Now, we're looking at 96 three-bedroom units. So,
So that's not final. That's what they're saying. They have to go to
they're
the
saying a
planning
minimum,
board, and they
okay?
have to go through a whole process with the planning board.
Yep, but just hear me out here, okay?
Go ahead.
So, it could be more than 96 units.
It
Okay,
could be
they're-
less.
no, because if you read the paperwork, it says a minimum.
They still have to go through the planning board.
Okay? So, to be conservative, all right, if you look at a three-bedroom home, if you add one child per bedroom, that is a total of 192 children. I bring this up because I pay one tax bill, okay? Whatever you do here impacts the school as well. So, 192 children added to the school population. Has anybody looked at what the increase of the cost of that
Yeah,
be?
the 192 number is completely off. We use a factor of like 0.065, right?
Somewhere around there, yes, but there
So
is-
it's a half a child per unit, 0.065. And we have those
For a
numbers.
three-bedroom unit?
We have those numbers going all the way out into the school district, and they've done all the analysis. That's why we're using 0.065. Because all these apartments that we built that they said we were going to get hundreds of children from, we got 10.
And
So,
that's borne out by the Woodmont
so
fiscal impact.
I don't want people to think there's 192 kids coming to the school because of what you're saying. And it's not being disrespectful. We use a different metric because the metric has proven out.
Okay, so
And
based on your
and
metric-
I have the chairperson of the school board here
So
if I need to verify that.
based on your metric, John, if you have 96 units, how many kids would you think is going to impact the school system?
It depends. I mean, because what we're finding in the community is,
about 16.
So that's from my
I have a hard time believing you're only going to have 16 kids
Well-
and 96 units with three bedrooms.
Yeah, Dan, these are the metrics that have bared out over the last 10 years. And I said, I've got the chairman of the school board here. We can bring him up and ask him.
Because
But
if you-
that's where it's bared out.
I mean, I talked to somebody
And I'm
today.
not trying to dispute with you, Dan. I just don't want people thinking there's 200 kids coming because that's not what the math has been telling us.
Okay, well,
But I get your
this
point.
this is my point, okay?
I understand.
The town in 2003 voted to purchase that easement in order to kind of curtail the explosion that the town was experiencing in the school system because it just adds more to the tax base. Police, fire, and everything else. Has anybody made a calculation, figured this out? How much is it going to cost us to release this? Right now, it's saving us money. It's going to cost us money.
So that particular warrant article through special election
Yep.
combined with combined to a total of $16 million that the town spent on open space.
Yep.
Under the premise that they were going to be able to defer, students into the schools because we were at 5,600 in 2005.
Yep.
Ever since 2005, we've done this. So while we protected a lot of land, which was probably the right thing to do,
It was. I voted for that.
and on this particular one, I sat on the planning board, these 361 units they wanted to put in, what he failed to mention, a part of that is they also wanted to add a strip mall, they wanted to add an assisted living center. There was a lot more to it. So we were looking at an extreme push on services. That's why it came to the ballot. So to say, how many services do I need based on 96 new homes? I mean, right now, based on our call per unit, we're going to keep going up. We're going to keep going up based on the age of our community. I'm more concerned about that than I am about adding housing. Now, that's me and you having a conversation. That's how I sort of think about it.
I mean, over the weekend, you read another article of another 300 units up there on Akira Way.
Well, that's
All
gonna,
right.
but that, and we were all just finding out about that too.
Okay, but there's 300 units there, 96 units here, Woodmont, everything else. You're going to see an explosion in the school system. Granted, the town's going to look back and say, hey, we made some money off of this deal. It's going to cost us money down the road. This is not costing us anything right now, is what I'm saying.
So two pieces. Woodmont's within their development agreement. They have to be tax neutral. So whatever goes in there has to remain tax neutral. There's a formula they have to follow. It's a covenant that's filed with the deed. I can't speak to these other things because I just don't know them. You know, I understand what you're saying, but unfortunately, in some ways, for all of us who've been here a long time, is every piece of open land everybody gets an eye on. They want to put a house on
Exactly.
because they're $800,000. So what you do is you try to protect it as much as you can.
I mean, you got by exit 5, you got another development there that's coming in, for more housing.
So what I've got here is I've got a piece of land that we can recover the money on. The voters said to do it. The town council can't go back and say nope, we're not doing it.
Well,
All right, so that's one thing. The voters voted on it, and they said to do it. What we can do is through our processes make sure the right thing that matches Londonderry gets built. That's what we can do.
well, I know that when this first came up, I questioned a lot of this, and I was told that there's going to be more information coming out. You'll get, in this. I don't see it. I don't go on Facebook, Mike. I'm sorry. All right? Facebook to me is not the place for, finding out this information. I come to you guys to find out this information because I think it's important that you would have had more meetings on this before you got to this stage to maybe say, this is kind of what we're looking at. This would be the tax impact, police, fire, all right? Education, all right? This is what we could be looking at. Are we going to be losing money down the road? I think we are. I think that's going to cost the town more money down the road if you do this.
Well, the voters have already voted on it, so it has to go through the process. What gets built, there's public hearings, you can go in front of the planning board. They control this now. We're only following what the voters said. And it doesn't matter if it passed by 33 or 333 or by 1.
I understand
That's
that.
what they said.
But when this was presented, okay, it would have been nice if it was presented to say, all right, this is how much it's going to be an impact as far as, education, police, fire costs, and everything else. It wasn't, okay? It was, we're going to make this kind of money. Well, if you're going to tell me you're going to make that kind of money, yeah, I'll vote for it, all right? I'm being short-sighted. I'm not looking down the road. I'm not planning ahead, all right? And when I look at this whole thing and I see a lot of this going on, development here, development there, I see the school is going to cost us more money,
I understand what you're saying.
okay? So I would hope that you would not vote for it.
Yeah. And you can always call me if you want to ask me something.
Mr.
You have
Chairman.
my number.
No, I don't, but get it to me, and I will call you.
It's on the website. Everybody else calls.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just briefly, I think, reasonable, as I said at the time, reasonable minds can disagree on this, whether it's a good idea, whether it's a bad idea. But as you pointed out, the voters did this weighing that we're talking about here tonight, and for a variety of reasons, I think also to include repurposing that site that it narrowly passed. A couple of things. There was, a reference to somebody saying that this proposal was only going to be a few houses. I could tell you, I never said that. Nobody on my staff ever said that. And if somebody had said that, I would ask them, why are you paying $2.65 million for a few houses? As far as the process concerns that were raised, we can always have more meetings. We can always take more time. But there is no dead of night stuff happening here. There is no backroom deal. There is no lack of legal process. This is this has been gone over very carefully, and I agree. Reasonable people can disagree on this, and I take Mr. Bouchard's points. He makes a number of good points. But at every juncture, we have attempted to make sure that the public had the opportunity to tell us what they wanted to tell us, and I think that we've observed that scrupulously throughout.
Thank you. Yes. Please be brief.
Tony DeFrancesco, 1 Cheshire Court. I think Kelly's information is correct, but I also want to respond to Mr. Bouchard's comments and help him understand that we all also voted for the 55 and older communities back then, and now we're saying that wasn't necessarily the right thing to do either. We've got to have a really good combination and a mix. I will tell you, standing here as a realtor, what we're seeing in the industry now. And I can tell you, just recently I put somebody into a 5-bedroom home, 0 kids, don't plan on having any. But we're putting people into 3 and 4-bedroom homes that the husband and wife are both working from home. And so they're using 2 bedrooms, 1 bedroom each, as an office. And there's a lot of that now going on. So I think the metric that the school district and historically we've used in the past is actually going to go down because of people using bedrooms as offices. Whether or not that happens or not, we have to wait and see. It's anecdotal. But I think there's a good chance that could happen based on what we're seeing in the real estate market today. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray, please be brief.
I'll make this brief. Ray Breslin. Mr. Malaguti responded to something I said in regards to the information being brought forward, and perhaps it has. Maybe I've missed some of it. It was also mentioned that this was did I understand this was a warrant article? What warrant article was that?
It was voted on in at town meeting of 2022.
Was it a special town meeting?
No, it was regular town meeting.
Mr. Chairman, it was Article 17 and Article 18 on the 2021 warrant, 2022 warrant.
Okay, and it did pass, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so just once again, there's a lot of good ideas about this, reusing property, getting it back on the tax roll, all of that. The money, the town getting money back that they put up. Unfortunately, that conservation land was not used, and I think conservation land is very important. But the other thing is that I think this was mentioned about being a brownfield site. Now, what does that mean? Is it contaminated? I think it was brought up that perhaps there are pesticides on the site. Maybe it's been 40 years ago. Nevertheless, apparently there is pesticides on the site, and they're going to have to remove the topsoil, I believe. Now, once you remove the topsoil, you can't just take it somewhere and dump it. It either has to be dealt with at a reprocessing place, or it has to be moved to another contaminated site, which, by the way, did happen on North Gilcrest. It was removed from that site and moved on to Woodmont site, which is also technically a contaminated site. I could be wrong about that, but I've checked on that, and apparently that is the case. If you go and take a look off Pillsbury, a big pile of dirt there, okay? That was put there because it was removed from Gilcrest, because technically it's contaminated soil. Of course, now it's being dug into and used other places. We don't know where it's going to be used. So that is of concern. And by the way, I did mention about contaminated monitoring wells on, technically, the Nibbins site, because not only where the Nibbins houses are, east of that, going towards this site, is a contaminated site. It's a Superfund site that is the Tinkham Superfund site. That is of concern. We need to know what is what the contamination is and what we're going to be dealing with, okay? Because if you think that's going to be conservation land that kids are going to go out and play in, that's not the case. A lot of it is wetland, okay? It's not usable land. So, and the other thing I brought up is about the sewer. That's going to be a cost to the town.
All right,
Go
right.
ahead.
Okay.
What?
Are we good? Are we good?
Yeah, go ahead.
No. It's-
Yep.
Are you good? Are you all done?
I'm going to wait for Mr. Maligodi to respond.
Sewers are tax neutral. There is no cost to the town. Sewers are tax neutral. The users pay for them. Is there anything else?
That should do it. Thank you.
I appreciate it, thank you. Just for the public's clarification, I don't know that we're moving contaminated soil around town. I'm sure DES would have something to say about that. I don't want that to saying that the town is saying that anyone's moving contaminated soil around town. And as far as the sites are concerned, it's been under EPA regulation and rules and monitoring for over 30 years. So if we want to pull the EPA maps, we can take a look at what's out there.
Mr. Chair, I say we move forward with this. The voters have voted on this back in 2021.
All right, do I have a consensus to move forward?
Yeah.
Yes? Please move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next item.